In this video, we're going to talk about how to simplify a rational and also how to determine where it has undefined values. So the first step is factoring. You want to check to see if you can factor the top and or the bottom. And this one, the numerator factors to be x plus 2, x minus 2 because it's the difference of perfect squares. I do have videos on factoring. If you're rusty on factoring, is definitely a prerequisite skill for this skill. The denominator, I want it to figure out what multiplies to be negative 14 and adds to be 5 in the middle. And so I'd make my list of things. Okay, that can't add to be 5. 2 times 7 multiplies to be negative 14. If I make the 2 negative, now we also add to be a positive 5. So I have x minus 2 and x plus 7 in the denominator. Once you get your factors, you are going to find your restricted values or your undefined values, and that's any x value that would make the denominator 0. So for this first factor on the bottom, I would set that equal to 0. I would add 2 to both sides, and I can see that x equals 2 is undefined, because if I plug 2 in, it would give me 0, and then I would be dividing by 0, which isn't allowed. So we know x cannot be 2. Then over here for this x plus 7, I would do the same thing. So I would have x plus 7, set it equal to 0, subtract 7 on both sides, and x cannot be negative 7. And so these are my undefined values. My simplified expression is then going to happen when I cancel common factors from the top and the bottom. X minus 2 is multiplying on the top and dividing. Well, it's also multiplying on the bottom, but because you're multiplying and dividing by it, you can cancel it out, and that leaves us with x plus 2 over x plus 7, but these two values are still our undefined values even though those factors cancel. This is what would be called a hole on a rational graph, but we're not going to get into that today. All right, the next one. The top cannot be factored. It's just 3x squared. It's just one term. Can't take anything out of it. The denominator, you can take out 12 from 12 and 48, so I'm going to take a 12 out. You can take x squared out of x to the third and out of x squared. So if I wanted to figure out, well, what was left over, 12x squared times x is 12x to the third. 12x squared times negative 4 is negative 48x squared. So you're kind of like undistributing here, you're factoring. Now I want to figure out, well, what makes my denominator be 0, because those would be restricted values. So it's like I'm setting this one equal to 0 and this one equal to 0. Now, I'll do the one on the right first because it's a little bit easier. You just add 4, and we see x can't be 4 because if 4 take away 4 would be 0. The one on the left, divide by 12. X squared is equal to 0. Okay, well, if I square root x, that means x can't be 0. Because if you plug 0 in right here, you're doing 12 times 0, which is 0. So those are my two undefined values. Now I'm going to simplify. They both have an x squared top and bottom, so that would cancel out. And 3/12 reduces to 1/4. And so this would be my simplified rational. All right, number 3, I'm going to factor out an x squared in the numerator because they both have at least x to the second power, leaving me with just an x in the first place because x squared times x is x to the third, and leaving me with a minus 7 in the second spot. Then I'm going to try to factor the bottom. I need it to multiply to be 14 and add to be 9. So that would be x plus 2 and x plus 7, because 2 times 7 is 14 and 2 plus 7 is 9. And now I'm ready to find my undefined values. So I'm going to again think about, well, what makes x plus 2 be 0, because that's not allowed. So I'm going to take 2 away, and I get x cannot be negative 2. X plus 7 equals 0. Take 7 away, and x cannot be negative 7. So those values would make our denominator be 0, and that would be a problem. So when I go to simplify this one, I notice there's no common terms. You can't cancel x minus 7 with x plus 7. You can't cancel x squared with x plus 2. So this is just our simplified expression right here. That you could put it in either way. Just be aware that on a multiple choice exam that you should expect to see either option. All right, number 4, I'm going to factor the numerator. I need it to multiply to be negative 16 and add to be 6. So if I do x minus 2 and x plus 8, Negative 2 times 8 is negative 16, and negative 2 plus 8 is 6. And then in the denominator, we can factor out a GCF of 2x. They both can be divided by 2 and x. 2x times x is 2x squared, and 2x times negative 2 is that negative 4x. Before I go canceling things, I need to set my two factors in my denominator equal to 0 to figure out my undefined or restricted values. When I divide by 2 to get x alone, that means x can't be 0. And when I add 2, that means x cannot be 2. So those are my restricted values. And then we can cancel the x minus 2 top and bottom. And our simplified rational is x plus 8 over 2x. Hope this helps.